Good morning, open heart. It is my pleasure to be your messenger today. And so, our theme for this month is freedom in the midst of limitation. And my talk title today is Freedom is an Inside Job. Well, I've had a lot of time to think about freedom lately, and it's quite the concept. I will say that I've been amused and a little bit disturbed at people kind of wigging out over having to wear a mask and, talking about it's my body and it's my choice. And a friend of mine said that this isn't anything new and sent a video from like the 1970s in some state where they made seat belts, wearing your seat belt mandatory. And people were at the city council meeting, even senators from that location, saying, you can't tell me what to do. It's my body, it's my choice. I think it's a very interesting concept. My body, my choice. The government can't tell me what to do. I have freedom. The government tells us what to do every day. Here are some examples. When you see this, you stop. Say, well, that's because I don't want my car to get hit, or I don't want, yeah, but the government makes sure that when you see this red light, you stop. The government tells you that you can't park here, that this is for handicapped people only. Why? Because people weren't thinking about handicapped people. They'd have to park all the way in the back. And so now the government says, because you weren't thinking about somebody else, we will think about them for you. And so you're not parking in these first 4 or 5 spots. And I mean, even the government tells you that you have to pay for your groceries at the store. You say, well, I'll go to jail. But jail is part of the government if you get arrested. So the government really tells us most of the day what we're going to do. And so I want to make the suggestion that freedom is more than what we can do on the outside or what we're able to do. But as I said, I was inspired initially by watching people ranting and raving about masks, and then I saw the whole thing about the seat belts, and I thought, what is going on here? And just really spending some time contemplating, I realized that those people so hungrily clutching at their freedom, it's because they're not free within. That rage and that fear that is pouring out in those circumstances is really because they feel imprisoned on the inside. And they want to make sure that they're not getting imprisoned on the outside. But I want to say today that freedom is an inside job. And I want to talk about 3 ways to be free on the inside. So number 1 is to choose consciousness. And this man, of course, has been such a great example of freedom, Nelson Mandela. But this statement by him, I think, makes my point so clearly. Thank you, Nelson Mandela. As I walked out of the door towards the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave behind or didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I would still be in prison. This great man demonstrates that he could have walked out of the building that had him imprisoned, but he still would have been in prison on the inside. And so many of us, society told us we were too dark and not beautiful, or we were dumb, or because we took some tests at school and it told us this, or we don't have any value, or don't speak up, or stay away from confrontation, or you're fat so you don't have value, or you're gay so you're going to hell, or you had a child out of wedlock so now you're really going to hell. So all those things, we've let those society judgments, those society fears and wanting to control, if we take that within, that becomes our consciousness. We have to choose freedom on a daily basis and to begin within, knowing that releasing bitterness, believe me, I got a family that some folks I'd like to slap every now and again, people that I work with, even myself, right? But you got to let that go, look at it, appreciate it, give it to love, and let it get transmuted. But that I choose freedom every day. And believe me, working at Baptist, where all that Baptist, that traditional Christianness and judgment and fear, this stuff is all around. And there was a while, I told someone about my beautiful wife, my beautiful wife, and oh my God, you would have thought that I told them that I love eating children and put some puppy dog on the side. And it had me in a way. And I thought, you know what? I don't care. I am free within. And I had to make that choice to release that judgment. And really, it's a fear and an ignorance, and to walk in freedom, that every day we choose to either be imprisoned by unhealthy consciousness, or we choose freedom with a healthy consciousness. Now, what really got me thinking about this quote inspired me by Muhammad Ali. So let me just recap. So number one, the way that we are free on the inside is that we have to choose freedom. It has to be a conscious choice on our part, because the world outside of us is subconsciously and consciously telling us we are imprisoned. And so we have to choose every day consciously to be free. How do we begin that process, or what is one way to choose freedom consciously? This great quote by Muhammad Ali. We all have the same God. We just serve him differently. Rivers, lakes, ponds, streams, oceans all have different names, but they all contain water. So do religions have different names, and they all contain truth expressed in different ways and forms and times. It doesn't matter whether you're a Muslim, a Christian, or a Jew, or none of those things. When you believe in God, you should believe that all people are a part of one family. If you love God, you can't only love some of God's children. Oneness, that understanding that we are one and that we are a part of a collaborative community. I tell Gail, oh, your pets are outside, because they're little hummingbirds. If that hummingbird feeder gets low, they actually sit on the hummingbird feeder and look inside the window, or sometimes they'll fly right up to the window like, hello, hey, right? There's a oneness, that the joy that they give us by being in the yard, we give them their little sugar water. But our trees provide shelter for their nest. The trees provide shade for us. There is a oneness, a collaboration. It is a complete lie and a fabrication that we are different. So are you listening to what you're saying, Villa? Yes. So even people that I dislike, like hateful people that are in the Ku Klux Klan, I have to acknowledge, if I want to be free, that they are children of God, like me, and that we are all a part of the same family. That choosing every day to be free consciously, and basing that on the concept of oneness. There is only one God. There is only one presence God. There's only one source God. There's only one life God. And that source, presence, and life are my life, presence, and source now. And that God is in everyone and in everything. Either you believe that or you don't. You can't be halfway. Well, God's in the, zebras and the lions, but he's not over here in the stink bugs and stuff. We are one, and freedom, because when I see you as valued and worthy and lovable, I release you from being less than that. I free you with my own freedom, and I free you with oneness. So how does that happen, right? It's work we have to do. It's work that we have to do. And so Ernest Holmes talks about, you got to practice the presence. First, we have to practice the presence within. I live in faith that there are a presence and a power greater than I am that nurtures and support me in ways I could not even imagine. I know that this presence is all-knowing, all-powerful, and is always right where I am. This isn't about I can do it myself. No. We are collaborating with the spirit within, with the spirit around, and with his understanding that it's not about me. I don't have to be a good American to be a good New Thought person. I don't have to be a good American, individual, pull myself up by my bootstraps, build myself a log cabin to live in like Abraham Lincoln, or he was born in one, or whatever. That we don't have to do that. We are a community. That is the beauty of the Trinity in Christianity and the Trinity in Hinduism. People don't know that even the divine works in community, and that divine wants to work in, as, and through us. I mean, even when you read the narratives in the Bible or in the Bhagavad Gita, the gods are working through people. Healing, when Jesus, let's talk about the issue, Jesus healed the woman with the issue of blood. She wasn't just walking around like, oh, I feel the presence and now I am healed. That could happen, but she had to actually go through a person. And the presence and the power of God is in us and through us. It's not just floating around willy-nilly. And if we will say, yes, I am that mighty, and I am that great, and I am that powerful, and all that God is, the Grand Canyon and the Grand Tetons and Mount Fuji, the beauty of that, the creativeness of that, and the power of that is in me and available to me. Just like our theme says, when I acknowledge that presence, when I acknowledge that power, I activate it. And freedom begins within by acknowledging and activating the presence and the power that has been available to us from day one or day zero, because from eternity. And that if we want to be free, mask, vaccines, seatbelts, handicap parking, yes, you got to pay for your groceries, no, you can't go naked in public, no, you can't beat up children, all those rules wouldn't even be necessary. Well, maybe the vaccines and seatbelts, because those are health issues, but all those public issues of loving. How do you end world hunger? You see yourself and someone else and you don't withhold. How do you end mass shootings? We say love, we value people. We teach men that when you feel angry, you don't have to pick up a gun, but you can say, I'm angry and I want to cry. How do we heal women from self-hatred and, trying to please people and be people pleasers and go after any man that says you look pretty? We teach them to know their value and that they are powerful and that their voice matters, right? There are still denominations in this country that will not allow a woman to be ordained because they go by that, I'm not going to cuss while I'm at church. I do not allow a woman to have authority over a man. Well, what about the other books of the Bible that got left out where Mary Magdalene's running the show? Okay, you know what I'm saying? We've got to get together and say, stop saying people are other. Some folks can't do some stuff. Yes, children can't drive. I get it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about understanding that when I have lunch with John, which is always wonderful, that the presence and power of God is there. And when I'm angry at my boss, which I have been, I still need to acknowledge the presence and power of God there. That is how freedom begins within. When I acknowledge that there's something greater than me, that I ain't got everything control and I don't know the script, but I release, let go, and submit, surrender to that which is already me. I'm not trying to get some other power outside of me to do something. It's already me. And I acknowledge it, and I make room for it, and I connect with it. So that's working within. And then I have to practice that presence without. In the peace of God, I feel the love of a holy presence. In this consciousness, right? I got to get it within me first of love. All sense of fear slips away. And I get it. Living here in the South, there is a lot of fear here. Why? Because of the legacy of slavery, and sometimes folks just don't want to tell the truth about stuff. And there's fear everywhere. I'm not trying to say that other places are better, but there is a lot of fear here, a lot of unspokenness here, a lot of just turn your head or paint a whitewash it or paint it with a happy brush. But when we can speak the truth in love and let that fear slip away, the fear we have of being judged, the fear we have of not being enough, which is silly. We are all awesome and mighty and wonderful. And I know that stuff in our childhood could have told us differently, but I'm telling you right now, you are a mighty, wonderful, awesome, radiant being, and you are valued, you matter, and you are needed. And when you and I can grasp that truth and live in it, I see good in everything. God personified in all people. I know there's folks that don't like me, but if you are new thought or taught to be a spiritual person, you need to see God in me. And if you love God, then you got to love me. Oh, yes. Love some Villa Willis. You don't have to like me, but you got to love me. Oh, yes. And there's some folks that I don't like. Took your name out of my phone book, out of my phone and everything. But I know that I have to love you because within you is the presence of God. And when I can acknowledge that based on practicing the presence and the power of God within, I will see the life of God in everyone. And then it has no choice but to grow up all around me. As I said before, we are on this planet to shine the radiant light of the divine, of the goddess, of Mother Nature, of oneness and wholeness. We're here to be a beneficial presence on the planet. We should not be the same as people who are harming the planet, who want to take from the planet, who are living in fear. We're here to be a beneficial presence and to work to embody and demand a world that works for everyone. We are here to be a healing presence. And when we can be that within and be that without, I conclude with this quote from Ernest Holmes. A realization of the presence of God is the most healing agency known to the mind of God. Be the presence, acknowledge the presence, and let us be healing instruments for the divine in this world. Namaste.